Megadimension Neptunia V2, as the name might suggest, is a direct sequel to Victory, and, as a result of the desire to take the game in a different direction following the criticism of Victory's writing, the tone and writing have taken a dramatic shift. Instead of Victory's approach of being extremely joke-centric and casual tone-wise, V2 opts to handle the writing in a more grounded and focused manner that puts more spotlight on the story and proper character interactions. We even see Neptune in particular undergo this shift in tone, and it dramatically improves her character. So, what makes someone like Neptune evolve from being seen as a nuisance to being beloved? Well, V2 gives us the answer by reshaping the very flaws that define her in Victory. To get the point across, I'll list off moments from different cutscenes that are indicative of Neptune's growth from Victory, and are examples of why her writing is much better than at first glance.
Neptune VII.
The first point I want to discuss is in Arc 1, the Zero Dimension arc, and the beginning of the game. Neptune's pettiness and selfishness, which were most upfront in Victory, are replaced by kindness and selflessness, most notably towards Nepgear. Nepgear was Victory's punching bag, and her role was defined by the constant jokes made about her, with a lot of them coming from Neptune. In Victory, however, Neptune treats Nepgear with significantly more respect, trying to cheer her up with some playful banter and compliments in light of their situation. A similar scenario occurs later on in the arc, where Nepgear becomes upset after realizing Uzume will be alone once the sisters leave Zero Dimension. Neptune even comments that Nepgear is an earnest soul, and that whenever something is wrong, it's written all over her face. Thus, Neptune and Uzume work together to cheer Nepgear up by taking her to an arcade where they can play games and wash away the insecurities. Additionally, after Neptune and Nepgear's initial meeting scuffle with Uzume, they quickly become amicable with each other and treat each other with respect, with the former two going so far as to demand that they help Uzume with her troubles, those being the Dark Goddess, the main big bad of the first arc, and R4, before they return home. Several times, as a matter of fact. Even with their initial tension, Neptune was more than willing to buy some time for Uzume to escape, knowing that they couldn't win against the Dark Goddess. We see here in these moments that, rather than trying to make light of every little thing, or cracking jokes that are overall unfitting of the scene and unbecoming of her character, Neptune tries to solve these problems with the help of those around her, going out of her way to keep Nepgear in high spirits, helping her out of her episode of insecurity, and even saying she'd be happy to give herself up to let someone else live. It indicates that Neptune is trying to do right by Nepgear and her peers again, even if she doesn't openly express her intentions. Moving on, once we reach the point where Neptune and Nepgear are separated, which I like to call the halfway point of the first arc, we are given less time overall with Neptune, but her genuine side shines through again. Not long after she returns home, Neptune becomes concerned for Nepgear's well-being, calling it an emergency and immediately trying to inform Histoire, the Oracle of Planeptune and Neptune's assistant. However, after seeing that Histoire has overheated herself and subsequently short-circuited, she puts her focus towards helping Histoire recover, even saying that Histoire is more important than herself. This alone is a pretty big sign of improvement, as whenever Histoire enters the picture, whether through conversation or she's brought up as a subject, Neptune expresses discontent with it, and even at the beginning of the game we see the same attitude towards Histoire appear. So seeing her attempting to help Histoire and prioritizing the Oracle's health over her own well-being in spite of this shows that deep down, she really does care about Histoire, even if she dislikes dealing with the constant lecturing and forced work. By now, I'm sure you're starting to get the picture. Victory's Neptune, as I said before, is a lot more selfish and petty. She blames others for her mistakes, or mistakes that occur in general. She rarely apologizes until she's forced to by her peers. She makes her sister the butt of many jokes after she becomes a mainstay in the party, and she gets into arguments over small things, and is often the instigator of those arguments as well. V2's Neptune, on the other hand, is improved by a large margin by taking all of those traits from Victory and flipping them on their head. She's kind and selfless, opting to help others before herself. She displays genuine concern for those around her, including Nepgear, whom she previously treated poorly, and she actively supports the people she cares for, such as Uzume and another character I'll speak about in a little bit. But there's still some more material for me to go through in regards to V2, so let's just do the most uninteresting and thoughtless gear shift and talk about the next arc. I seriously had no idea how to transition into talking about it. I'm just that bad at making segues now.
Neptune G!
Having established Neptune's growth through her interactions with Nepgear and Uzume in the first arc, it's time to focus on her contributions during the Hyperdimension arc, the second arc of the game. In this arc, I will primarily examine Neptune's storyline, among the 4 available choices in the second arc, as it places greater emphasis on her character, and is the only arc where she is actually featured. Surprise, surprise. This allows us more opportunities to see her interactions with others, such as IF, Kampa, Iswar, and Bisha, a newcomer to the game. Our first glimpse into this arc's developments for Neptune occurs when she and Nepgear are reunited after being separated once again. This separation is the result of a mysterious disembodied voice that has rewritten the history of game industry, altering its social structure and other aspects. Though Neptune is relieved to see that Nepgear is safe, having not seen each other for days amidst the chaos, she quickly decides on a course of action. Neptune pleads with Nepgear to assist Vert, the goddess of Leanbox, who is dealing with crises within her nation. Although Neptune would love to spend more time with Nepgear, she understands that now is not the time for idleness, especially considering that Vert is the only goddess without a candidate to call her own, leaving her alone and without an ally's assistance in the situation. This scene highlights Neptune's caring and helpful nature, while also conveying her regret for not being able to stand by Nepgear as much as she would like. She recognizes that Vert, the only goddess without a candidate, needs assistance now more than ever. She knows that IF, Kampa, and Iswar are there to help her, unlike Vert at the time of this scene. Neptune empathizes with Vert's situation. With dwindling shares and no one to turn to for support amidst the chaos and lost control over the nations, it feels hopeless and exhausting. But with a friend or two, that hopelessness can be turned right back around and everything will turn out fine with a shoulder to lean on. Therefore, she decides to send the only person she knows who possesses the strength and kindness, and means of transportation, to Leanbox to assist Vert, her sister Nepgear. I should point out, though, that after Nepgear's departure, Neptune comically realizes that Vert's cleanliness and adoration for Nepgear will undoubtedly intensify since it'll just be the two of them on Leanbox. But I don't consider this moment anything more than what it was meant to be, a joke. Something that doesn't diminish the significance of what I've described or the writer's intent in this scene. One other scene that I want to highlight in Neptune's story is where she converses with Bisha, a newcomer to this game, as I described earlier, about why the latter fled from Haneda City during its first wave of monsters. Before Neptune ends up finding Bisha, she informs Iswar that she will look for the Gold Third of Planeptune. Oh, by the way, the Gold Third is this group of 4 girls who miraculously kicked the goddess's ass at the beginning of this arc, and Bisha is one of them. Just figured I'd point that out for those who didn't know. Kampa offers to join her, but Neptune insists that she goes alone, believing that Bisha is feeling guilty about something and that it'd be easier for Bisha to speak if Neptune went alone. Thus she does, and finds Bisha in a random park sulking. After a bit of prodding, Bisha eventually opens up. Neptune comes to learn that Bisha has an irrational fear of monsters, stemming from an attack that she experienced when she was young. She believed that joining the Gold Third would help alleviate her trauma, but since then, her trauma has only become worse, leading to Bisha saying that she's a failure of a Gold Third member, let alone a hero. Seeing Bisha's sincerity and genuine regret over her inability to defeat monsters, whether big or small, Neptune offers comforting words. She reassures Bisha, saying, if you're doing the best you can, then you're not failing as a Gold Third member or a hero at all. Coming up with a solution, Neptune makes Bisha an offer. They should work together from now on. Neptune proposes that she'll be able to handle the monsters, while Bisha focuses on maintaining the city's security and stopping criminals from having their way. This way, both concerns will be addressed and nothing will be neglected. Bisha even remarks that she understands why people put their faith in Neptune. To quote Neptune verbatim again, we all have our strengths and weaknesses, and when we're at our lowest points, all we need is a friend to help us be strong again. In this moment, Neptune understands that Bisha can't simply push her trauma aside to take care of the monsters, regardless of how strong she is with her golden power. Thus, she offers to take up the mantle to face the monsters head-on, whilst Bisha can focus on keeping the citizens in the city safe. This way, Bisha doesn't have to come face-to-face with the very things she's afraid of. In a sense, you could see this as a parallel, Neptune caring for Bisha the same way she cares for all of her citizens. She's striving to keep them safe from those that hurt them, whether physically or psychologically. In fact, you can also argue that this resolution directly ties back into the scene when Neptune sends Nepgear to Leanbox. Bisha, in the face of her trauma and inability to maintain a strong fortitude in front of monsters, doesn't have anyone to turn to at the moment, just like Vert didn't when she was starting off and dealing with her own crises. Bisha knew nobody in Planeptune, not Iswar, not IF, not Kampa, nobody whatsoever. She didn't have her friends there at her side to help her either, and in that aspect, she faced the same loneliness as Vert did. But Neptune was the person she needed all along to set things right again. Neither Neptune nor Bisha really knew each other all that well, and despite this, they were able to collaborate and provide support for one another. This situation emphasizes, much like the earlier scene with the reunion with Nepgear, that Neptune is willing to step up to the plate and help those who need it more than she does. To quote Nepgear from the first arc of V2, "I know she's a little peculiar at times, but when it comes down to it, Neptune's incredibly dependable and just plain cool." Up to this point, we have discussed the first and second arcs of V2, both of which provide cutscenes highlighting Neptune's positive character development that were once her defining flaws. With all that said though, we have one last big section to get through, so let's not waste any time and move into the last arc of V2, where the writers give a whole new meaning to why Neptune acts the way she does in this game. So, we went through the Zero Dimension arc, we went through the Hyperdimension arc, now it's time to round out this trilogy with the final arc, the Heart Dimension arc. This is the third and final arc of the game, which explores the history of Uzume as well as introduces us to that disembodied voice I mentioned earlier. Her name is Kurome, and she's the big bad of the whole game that looks like Uzume, but actually isn't, except she is? It's complicated, so if you want to know more, you should play the game yourself to learn the context. Regardless, that's not the topic of the video, so let's move on. In this arc, much like the latter half of the first arc and a majority of the second arc, we aren't given much time with Neptune. Though, as you might have guessed, just like in the first arc, that doesn't mean we aren't given more opportunities to delve into her character once again. Boy oh boy, we've got quite the bombshell here. And just like I said, it gives us a whole new meaning to Neptune's demeanor and why she does what she does. This section is going to be by far the longest part of the video, so just bear with me please. So, to give a little bit of context prior to the scene in question, Neptune and the other Guardian Goddesses are investigating a hole in space-time that was opened up at the end of Arc 2. During their investigation, they come across the Uzume, who's not actually Uzume, but also is actually Uzume, and the goddesses are kidnapped when she summons the Dark Goddess. Afterwards, they're placed in a state of sleep, forcing them to experience dreams of their deepest desires, which are then physically manifested in the real world. This is because of a special property exclusive to the Heart Dimension. In this case, it allows the cast, consisting of the goddess candidates, the Gold Third, IF, Kampa, Uzume, and an alternate version of Neptune from the Ultra Dimension, the dimension where victory took place, to enter these dreams as though they were the real deal. Fun fact, the Ultra Dimension Neptune was actually hinted to in the true ending of Victory, and her design is based on a piece of concept art from Mark II, which depicted Neptune's human form as a more adult person. Pretty interesting, eh? Anyways, as you might expect, since all four of the goddesses were captured, this means that all four of them have their own dreams. Each of them take place in their respective nations. Planeptune for Neptune, Last Station for Noir, Louis for Blonde, and Leanbox for Vert. And this is where we arrive at the crux of the matter, the events that unfold within the dreams themselves. But, before I talk about Neptune's dream, I want to quickly describe what the other three goddesses' dreams are about. Don't worry, this will become important later on, and I'm not just talking about them for the sake of dragging the video out. As mentioned before, these dreams were spawned from the respective dreamers' deepest desires, and what they want the most. As such, each of these dreams, expectedly, varies from person to person, with each of them befitting their personalities and aspirations. Let's go over Noir's dream first. Noir's deepest desire is to establish and maintain a successful, highly popular VO career. VO standing for voiceover. Essentially, she's a voice actress. Noir even goes on to say that she'd be better off leaving Last Station in the hands of Uni so she can pursue the VO career instead of devoting herself to goddess work all the time, believing that Uni has grown into her own person enough to take care of Last Station. This deeply upsets Uni, saying that this version of Noir isn't the sister she knows, and that she'd never consider quitting her job as a goddess. Next, we have Blonde's dream. Her deepest desire is to have a bigger chest. Blonde is, well, pretty flat. So, whenever people tease her over her small chest, intentionally or otherwise, she gets, shall we say, pissy, and starts shouting out profanities and whatnot as a result. Hence her desire for a bigger chest. At the end of the day, Blonde's biggest concern was her appearance, and the dream itself proved such. And, to touch upon the last of the three, we have Vert's dream. Her deepest desire is also nothing surprising. A younger sister. Actually, 2 younger sisters, according to the dream. Like I mentioned earlier in the Arc 2 section of this video, Vert is the only guardian goddess without a candidate, and has expressed her jealousy many times in not having a sister like the others do, which is the impetus of her dream. However, Vert also calls them herself, as in her sisters are just smaller and younger acting versions of herself, rather than actual sisters of any sort. Nepgear theorizes that this is because Vert also desires the feeling of having someone fawn over her, and that she wants to know what being treated as a younger sister feels like. Man, would I hate to tell you that there is an opportunity right in front of them with a character that is fawned over Vert every second of her screen time, and would more than likely treat Vert like a younger sister if she was asked to. At this point, you might be noticing a pattern with the goddess's dreams, and consequently their deepest desires. All of them tend to be centered around themselves and their successes in life. Noir wants to be a well-known idol, Blonde wants to have a bigger chest, Vert wants to have little sisters. Their dreams only take themselves into account. Noir's, you could say, is not as similar a case to Blonde and Vert, because she also brings up Uni and how she has faith that Uni is capable of running Last Station by this point. But even still, the dream is focused on her success and how she was able to achieve what she really wanted. Which, if you consider that these 3 have a high level of devotion to their citizens and their nations, through their actions in this very game no less, it makes the thought of their dreams being as self-centered as they are sound a bit abnormal, yeah? So you'd expect Neptune, the most outwardly selfish-sounding and acting person out of the 4, to follow the same trend to a much more severe degree, right? After all, from what we know about her, it seems like she'd want nothing more than to be free from her work, sitting about and doing nothing but playing games, eating pudding, and having fun. Well, let's talk about it in finer detail. Neptune's dream cutscene, taking place in Planeptune like said before, begins with IF, Kampa, and Bisha trying to figure out what kind of dream Neptune would have. Kampa says that, considering Neptune's goddess form, which is... yeah, she wouldn't really have a complex about her figure like Blonde does. Nobody seems to have any ideas, not even Nepgear, as she too ponders what brings Neptune true happiness. So, they continue exploring the dream Planeptune to locate Neptune. Once they spot Neptune, they notice that she's frolicking through the streets of Planeptune, surrounded by her citizens. They all have smiles on their faces, presenting Neptune with gifts and achievements that they've made, with Neptune happily accepting and complimenting them respectively. Despite this inherently heartfelt desire, IF finds herself in disbelief. She was expecting Neptune to have a dream more tailored to her traits, not what she was seeing in front of her. But Kampa objects, saying that this is normal for her, with Nepgear following it up, saying that she's seen this sort of scenery before. Nepgear then theorizes that Neptune's real happiness is an unchanging, peaceful, everyday life, with Uzume commenting that, even though the dream is exactly that, it's a prospect that's appropriate for Neptune. You know, it's quite funny when you think about it. Neptune, the goddess with the least demonstrated amount of devotion to her nation, has the most selfless and inclusive desire of the 4, and the other 3, the goddesses who have all exhibited their hard work to their homelands, are the ones with the selfish and exclusive desires. And really, this speaks so much to Neptune's character, more than a lot of what I've already explained before reaching this moment. The writer set up a perfect twist in this regard. They lead you into a false theory of believing that Neptune's dream is going to be focused all about her and what she wants only for herself. The characters that know Neptune the best, Nepgear, IF, and Kampa, all of whom have known Neptune for what we can assume to be most of, if not all of their lives, make some guesses that all point to Neptune's deepest desire being somewhat selfish, like sitting and eating pudding all day without the worry of having to do work. But once they stumble upon the dream in question, it comes to light that Neptune's deepest desire isn't anything selfish at all. It's not even remotely based around her as an individual. It's about everyone else. It's about seeing their smiles and feeling their happiness. Would you believe this to be Neptune's deepest desire when taking into account some of her more questionable behavior, like her pudding addiction and her frequent lack of desire to do her work or attend to her nation? Not even IF, one of Neptune's closest friends, believed it at first. But then, when you factor in this desire of hers, all of a sudden, it makes everything that I've explained and discussed make that much more sense in retrospect. Every point I've mentioned in favor of Neptune's growth from victory, all of it leads to this point in the game, and provides us with the explanation we've been looking for all along. Neptune wasn't doing what she did simply because it was nice or helpful or caring. She did it because she wanted them to be happy. She wants to get the, to put it in her words, happy ending. And that just goes to show how determined, selfless, and shockingly heartwarming Neptune's aspirations are. It's a testament to who she really is at her core. Well, boys and girls, we finally reached the end of this video, and the overall conclusion to this long and winding exposition of mine. So, let me just give a quick condensation of the entire video before I sign off, as to why Neptune is a better written character than you think. In summation, while Neptune on the surface appears to be a childish, staunchly but annoyingly bubbly girl who feels like she'll bring nothing but trouble and mischief wherever she goes, her personality goes a lot deeper than that. She maintains a level of innocence at her core, and nothing will ever change that about her, but she has a genuine side that shines through every so often. She may have had a bumpy ride as seen in Victory, where she was portrayed in an unprecedentedly childish manner to its detriment, leaving a sour taste in some fans' mouth. However, V2 proves that she can be more than that if she's given the chance to. We see her grow from an irresponsible, petty, and laughably dismeaning brat, to a kind and selfless and overall unwavering character who's always fighting tooth and nail to reach a conclusion that everyone can be happy with. Because when they're happy, then she is happy. She makes sacrifices, but she helps lift others up in the process, whether it's helping them overcome their trauma or ease their worries and insecurities. She's more than willing to step up and do what she can to make them happy. And that, my friends, is my argument for Neptune's writing being much better than you might think. What do you think of my points? Did you think they were sufficient enough to convince you that Neptune is more than meets the eye? Did they not change your opinion much, or leave you indifferent to Neptune's characterization? Or did you think that they weren't elaborate enough to give you a second thought about her? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to see what you all think. Better yet, if this video has piqued your interest in this series, then perhaps you should try some of the games and experience the journey for yourself. Lastly, if you enjoyed how this video was presented in general, and thought it was an entertaining ride from start to finish, then like the video, or just leave a comment that you'd want to see something like this from me again. I'm not sure what I'm going to make after this, but hopefully I can sort that out soon enough. So, thank you all so much for watching, and as always, I'll catch you all on my next upload. Peace!